Hey friends, before we jump into this, I just need to let you know that the first few minutes of this video is out of focus because I actually shot it not realizing the camera wasn't focused at all, but I fix it after a few minutes. So apologize for that, but just letting you know, that way there's not 6,000 comments below of people saying, hey, it was out of focus at the beginning. Hey friends, Ash here with Gents, and today I've got a first impression for you guys. Just one fragrance today. It's this one, Dior Homme Intense 2020. Or at least this should be Dior Homme Intense 2020. That's what the picture was when I bought this. So if I open this up and it's just Dior Homme Intense, I'm not gonna be happy. So what I'm expecting to find inside here, and looking at the box shape, this definitely should be Dior Homme Intense 2020. Show you what I'm talking about in just a second, but you guys are aware, I'm assuming, of this guy, Dior Homme 2020, which is a reimagining of Dior Homme. I went into a lot of detail in my Dior Homme 2020 review about what this could mean for the Dior Homme line going forward. Basically, Dior is most likely going to be fading or phasing this one out, the original Dior Homme. It's already removed from all of the US websites for Christian Dior and places where you would find fragrances like Sephora, Ulta, Macy's, Bloomingdale's, all of those places. The only thing you'll find is this one, Dior Homme 2020. Now, Dior Homme is still going to be available in Europe as Dior Homme Original, but who knows how long that's gonna be for. I hypothesized in my Dior Homme 2020 review that we could be seeing the same thing with Dior Homme Intense. Basically, Dior Homme Intense 2020, which would then be taking the place of the original Dior Homme Intense. And now I have in my hands here, Dior Homme Intense 2020. So in this video, we'll crack this open, spray it on, see how it compares to the original Dior Homme Intense, and see if this one is maybe a better release than Dior Homme 2020. So let's jump into this. Now, the big problem with Dior Homme 2020 that a lot of people have is it's not really similar to Dior Homme or the Dior Homme line. Iris, yeah, you're not really gonna find very much of that in Dior Homme 2020. What you will find is a whole lot of ISOE Super. Yeah, a really solid amount of ISOE Super. Dior says that it's essentially a modern woodsy fragrance that's supposed to wear like a second skin. That's how they describe Dior Homme 2020 right here, which is a marked departure from how the original Dior Homme smelled, or smells, I guess. So let's go ahead and open this box up and check out the presentation here. Here's a good look at the front of the box. You can see there, Dior Homme. This is the Intense version. Nothing on the top, nothing on the side, and very little on the back. On the bottom is where you'll find your badge code and barcode. Here's a good look at the front of the bottle, the top, sides, and then the bottom where you will find your badge code. And here's a quick comparison for Dior Homme Intense 2020 versus Dior Homme Intense. You can see there a very obvious difference in coloration and width, and there's the top for you. So Dior Homme Intense 2020, once you get it out of the box, is not really any taller than the original Dior Homme Intense. It is not as wide as the original, but the glass on the bottom here is actually thicker on the original Dior Homme Intense, so it's a little bit deeper in terms of how much liquid is held in the 2020 bottle. It may be hard to make that out, but the glass here is a little bit thicker on the original. Now I'm gonna go ahead and pull up checkfresh.com. That way I can check the batch codes on these bottles and let you know when each one of these was made, because I know for some of you out there, that will be important. So this original bottle of Dior Homme Intense right here is from 2014, so June 2014. And this Dior Homme Intense 2020 is from December 2019. Cap does click into place on the inside of the cap. There's your little Christian Dior B. Hopefully this will come across, but if it doesn't, you'll have to trust me that it's in there. It's right in here. And then there's a little CD on top of the atomizer for Christian Dior on the Dior Homme Intense 2020 bottle, which you can see right there. And this Dior Homme Intense 2020 bottle has a little bit of a curvature on the sides of the bottle where you pick it up. There's a slight curvature, so there's like a little dip. It's not very noticeable, but there's a little dip on each side of the bottle where you hold it. Now I'm gonna smell it just from the atomizer here. It does have a little bit of that almost chocolatey kind of scent to it, that sweetness that you'll find in Dior Homme Intense. This one may end up being a little bit closer to what the original Dior Homme Intense is, as compared to the big difference between Dior Homme 2020 and the original Dior Homme. So let me go ahead and spray on the original Dior Homme Intense on my right hand here, just for comparison's sake. Fantastic atomizer. And then I'll spray the 2020 version right over here on my left hand. So here we go. It is a lot closer to the original Dior Homme Intense than Dior Homme 2020 is to Dior Homme. Dior Homme 2020 is essentially an entirely new fragrance, whereas this one shares more similarities with the original. It is fresher. It comes across like a fresher Dior Homme Intense. It's not quite as centered to nighttime wear, I would say. You could still pull this off during the night, but it's not got the same amount of depth that the original does. It's not quite as deep, and it does have what smells like a little bit of synthetic woodiness in here. And off skin, it doesn't have that that chocolatey kind of vibe that I was talking about from the atomizer. It doesn't really come across that way off of skin. It's more freshness. So yeah, it doesn't strike me initially as being as much of a disappointment as Dior Homme 2020. When I first smelled Dior Homme 2020, I was just like, what is this? Like, what have they done? This one, it's like they're screwing around with something that they probably shouldn't screw around with because it's already really good, at least in my opinion. But it does appear that they're trying to make Dior Homme Intense much more of a potential everyday wear kind of version of Dior Homme Intense, maybe a slightly dumbed down, fresher, easier to wear, like I said, more versatile take on Dior Homme Intense. Now obviously this is just a first impression. This could change as it dries down, but yeah, it's lacking a bit of that, like I said, that oomph, that depth, that richness, that warmth, that sweetness, the way that it comes across in Dior Homme Intense. There's still a bit of that iris in here, but not quite as makeup-y or lipsticky in Dior Homme Intense 2020. As I've said a few times, just off the top of my head, essentially take Dior Homme Intense, freshen it up a good amount, throw in more of a focus on synthetic woody notes. And I don't say that in a degrading way. I don't mean that like busting on this. It's just, it doesn't smell like, oh wow, that's a hyper-realistic wood. That's how I'm trying to get that across. It is a little bit like the ISO E Super in Dior Homme 2020, but not at all as in your face. Here, the woodiness is just modern woods, I guess you would call it. I'm assuming that that freshness that I got right off the top was a sort of fruit. I know that there's pear in the original Dior Homme Intense, though I don't know if that is in this one, Dior Homme Intense 2020 or not. I'll spray it again here just so I can get reminded of that opening, because that initial kind of fruity sweetness died away really quickly. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe, but even in the opening, those woods come through pretty clearly. Yeah, they come through very clearly. That cedary, ISO E Super kind of vibe, but it has more additional iris. So, whereas Dior Homme 2020 had none, this one comes across like there's a bit in there, but it's toned way down. It's toned down heavily. I'm gonna end up going nose blind to this because I keep going pop, 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 pow, back and forth, smelling the two. But my initial impression here, just a more wearable Dior Homme Intense, freshened up, stripped of some of the things that made it really interesting. It's the direction Dior is going, I guess. If Dior Homme 2020 did not make it obvious what they were going for, then Dior Homme Intense 2020 sure as heck does. And not for nothing, and I know that this gets thrown around a lot, like, oh, look at the difference of the colors, and sometimes it truly does not matter. But look at the difference in coloration between the original Dior Homme and Dior Homme 2020. The original here, 2020 here. And again, we already looked at this once, but once again, Dior Homme Intense Original 2020. That really tells you a lot about what you need to know here in terms of just the coloration. The fact that this is so much lighter than this really also speaks to how the fragrance comes across on your skin. Dior Homme 2020, or Dior Homme Intense 2020 rather, still smells like it has that Dior Homme Intense DNA. But it's like a Dior Homme Intense that hasn't matured. It's like maybe a whiskey or something. And when you leave a whiskey in the cask for many, many, many years, it gets all these additional facets. The flavor gets deeper, the flavor gets richer. And obviously there's no booziness here, but that's what it smells like. It smells like Dior Homme Intense, but you took it out too soon. There's a bit of creaminess in Dior Homme Intense 2020. There is a bit of that iris in here, but just not as good. It's not bad, but I paid, I think, $98 for this, and I don't know if it was worth it. Ultimately, I think that this is going to be viewed much in the same way as Dior Homme 2020, at least by the hardcore people in the community. They're going to really bemoan the fact that Dior Homme Intense has changed and has changed in this direction. Other people who are more casual are probably going to like this a lot more because, again, like I've said a few times, it's more wearable. It really is. It's freshened up. It's stripped of some of the heavier facets of Dior Homme Intense, some of those denser facets, the lipsticky iris toned down, the musk mallow toned down, the ambrette. Interestingly enough, the woods are really more prominent in Dior Homme Intense 2020 initially. After 15, 20 minutes, it starts to settle into this creamy kind of vibe. I'm gonna give this fragrance some wear and wear it around town, wear it to the office, see how it performs and do a full review on it. As of right now, it opens up sweet, a little fresh sweetness, much fresher than Dior Homme Intense initially, with maybe some fruit in there. Then it starts to seg into a creamy sweetness. Very pleasant, very pleasing, a little bit of iris in there. Not as lipsticky, not as makeup-y as the original Dior Homme Intense, not as heavy as the original Dior Homme Intense. Interestingly enough, the woods, that initial blast, it comes across woodier than 15, 20 minutes in. You would think the woods would really lay a base and be prominent since you pick them up right away, but they kind of fade back a little bit as this dries down. They're still there, just not as prominent. I'm not sure how it's going to be in the full dry down, and I'll save that for the full review. But as it stands now, it smells pleasant. I think it's more wearable in more situations than Dior Homme Intense. I think that your casual people out there will like this version much more than the original Dior Homme Intense. The people that said, oh, it's too lipsticky, too makeup-y, too feminine, too powdery. Those people will probably very much prefer Dior Homme Intense 2020. The people that are in love for Dior Homme Intense for all the reasons I just mentioned, the powdery feel, the lipsticky, makeup-y kind of vibe, that depth, that richness, they're probably not gonna like the new version as much. Although this one is much closer to the original Dior Homme Intense than Dior Homme 2020 was to Dior Homme. So the fragrance has been on for a while now. It's dried down completely. Gotta tell you guys, it smells good. It smells quite similar to the original Dior Homme Intense. So it maybe still doesn't have quite as much depth as the old Dior Homme Intense does, but if you like Dior Homme Intense, the original, then Dior Homme 2020, and once it hits the dry down, the full dry down, you're gonna have a very similar experience. It's just more wearable through the opening and the mid, a little more versatile, though like I said in the video, maybe not quite as rich and maybe lacking a little bit if you like that, the full effect that Dior Homme Intense gives you, the original. But I'm gonna be wearing it and do a review on it here very shortly so I can go a little more in depth and let you guys know exactly what I think about it. All right guys, that's gonna do it for me. If you smelled this fragrance, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Hopefully we get an official note breakdown, release, or whatever with this fragrance. It is definitely not the same as the original Dior Homme Intense, but as I've said a number of times, a bit closer than Dior Homme 2020 is to Dior Homme. Thanks for all your support, guys, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.